All right. Welcome, everyone. Today it is Sandra Alexei here from Game Changer, which is the new relationship tool for self-discovery and the new model of relationships. I also, if you look underneath, I have a website called My Personal Muse, and I'm an astrologer, a business, and a spiritual coach. And so today we have something very, very exciting, and I do hope that you will comment and share and think of subscribing, because I do have a little contest that somebody won for September. So at the end of every month, I draw a name, and we get you get a free mini reading. And today I'm excited because you might have some comments you want to make to our wonderful guest, okay? And this is Shelley, and I hope I pronounced it right, Namovsky. And
perfect.
Here to talk to us about her personal journey of self-discovery at this particular stage of her life. So I'm really excited, Shelley. So it's your stage.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. Yes, so I'm Shelley, and I have my husband, Peter, who I need to introduce right away because my self-discovery journey would not have happened without him. So let me maybe give you a bit of that. He did a video with Sandra about 3 weeks ago where he introduced himself and how we met. And I don't want to go on and on about that, but part of it is important to put some context in it, I believe. So basically, we've been together 31 years, but have been married 24. So went out quite a bit, a long time before that, and spent time apart during that time in terms of living in different cities. So we were together, but we also had sort of that time apart, and got married and had our first child about a year later. So now we have 3 kids, 23, 21, and 15. And I think the part of what Peter was talking about, how we met, was sort of interesting because I lived in a northern town in Northern Ontario, and he was about 4 hours south. That's where he lived. But I went to school in my hometown, and he came to school up there. So that's where we met, in my hometown. So he was there going to school, and we met at university. I think he described that quite well, how we met and how it was. And he described how it felt for him when he first saw me, and sort of what that was like, which is so, I mean, it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful story in itself.
Yes.
Yes. And for me, I was starstruck in the same way, but not quite the same way. So it's not like I knew I would marry him when I first saw him, but there was something about this man that was just different. And it was sort of when you can't look away, like, who is this guy? He's so different from anybody I've ever seen, and not just in personality, but just in his presence, how he conducted himself. You could tell he was confident and, you know, joyous and just himself. Like, you knew that as soon as you saw him, what you see is what you get, which is great. It also could be a little bit, wow, like, who is this person kind of thing. So I remember seeing him the first time, and it was just, yeah, striking. And, you know, and he had a smell about him that was just, you know, the cologne, and it was a whole kind of, you know, kind of a visual, but not just visual. It was a whole experience for me. And so that was kind of, for me, he stood out in more ways than one. But anyway, it was kind of, okay, who's this guy and whatever. And we, you know, we had classes together and so on. So basically, just to say that we, as he described, we ended up, you know, getting together and so on. And then, you know, here we are married and so on. So I needed to explain that, I think, because some of the things that happened, well, a lot of things that happened from the time that we actually met through all of these 31 years, looking back on it now, there were things that we wouldn't have understood why they happened, but they were so necessary to be how they came about, to bring us to this place where we are right now. And I'm not just talking about our marriage, I'm talking about us as individuals and what we have both come to learn. We've both gone through self-discovery processes. His started way before mine, you know, a long time ago, sort of, but mine was sort of more recent. So it's like, it's one of these things that you can never discover yourself, I don't believe, without other influences around. It's not just, I'm going to sit here and decide to discover I don't think so. Not for me. Without him, this would not have taken place. And without situations that happen now that he also described a bit in his video, the things came together when they needed to come together.
Right.
So and I think what part of my, aside from discovering myself, part of what I've come to realize is at a certain age that I am now, you know, going through menopause and so on, there are changes that happen in a woman that, if not processed correctly, would stifle any kind of thing that needs to come out at that age. And part of that is emotional awareness. First of all, awareness of emotion, and then learning how to express it and not stifle it. And I come from a background, my family is very quiet, put everything under the carpet, no conflict. You don't speak about, there he is. There he is right there.
Hi. You're not rolling live, are you?
Yes, we are.
Oh, get out of here.
We are. He didn't know we were like, okay. Because he was late as usual. He was late as usual, thinking of what time it was. So, yeah. So I come from that background of, you don't talk about anything. It's all, you keep it inside. No conflict. Don't show emotion. So for me, for 50 years of my life, I never thought about my emotion. I never gave it thought. I just rolled on like a robot. Right? Like yeah. So, and that's important to the story, because when I came to realize what it meant to actually start to know yourself and discover who you are, it wasn't in isolation. It was in the experiences that Peter and I have had in the last year and a half or 2 years, have to do with coming to know what self-love means and where it comes from. And that the most important part of it is, if you don't know that God loves you and who he is and that he is love, then you cannot love yourself or your neighbor properly, based on what the scriptures say. Love yourself, love your neighbor, right? So it's a whole bunch of stuff. It's not just me in a vacuum thinking I'm going to do this and I'm going to start feeling this and expressing this. It all came so naturally when it was time to come. And with sort of I guess a huge point in this process happened about a year and a half ago when we were on holiday. So Peter did explain some of that in his video. And my point here is not to go over the detail and, you know, exactly what happened, but that could be, I tell you, 50 videos, because there were so many things that happened that were divine intervention. That, because it wasn't, we did not go on holiday going, okay, we're going to hope this happens and let's hope this happens. This was, even from the time before we booked it, we decided we're going to go. We never had a holiday without our kids before. So this was going to be just the two of us, and we're just going to go and, you know, relax and have fun and enjoy each other. And we did do that. But something happened during that time that changed, changed everything basically. And it ended up changing everything for the good, but there was a lot of self processing and a lot of tears and a lot of feelings and a lot of emotion. Sorry, that came with that. So it's something that's it's still new, because we've gone through something without a paradigm. This is something we've gone through that we couldn't say to someone, God, we're going through this, help us out. This was just raw. It was raw, and it was all truth, and it was all about honesty. And that's sort of where I feel a little bit conflicted, because I don't want to, like I said, go on and on about sort of every detail that happened. There are people involved in this that you know, that are not aware of the impact they had on this self-discovery, and it's not up to me to reveal that. So,
Kelly,
there was one particular, yeah.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
This is perfect timing, because you're talking about emotional honesty, number one. And I do have to say, I was single for 25 years. So I had relationships. Okay? And I had a dear friend say to me, you know what? You're only going to learn about love and relationship when you're in it. So it's similar to being a monk and sitting up on the mountaintop. You don't learn about life until you come down and you experience it. So
Right.
one I put. So you actually experienced a really true relationship once you became emotionally honest and
Yes.
yourself. And the next thing was you had a knowing, and it was divine timing. And I love
Yes.
timing, because I just sat with somebody the other day and she said, you know, she's 50 some years old, and she said, I've been so immature and I've made so many errors. And I go, God, no. I said, don't think about it that way, because
Yes.
we wake up and then we kind of fall asleep. We become conscious and unconscious. And I do have to say, both you and Peter have psychology majors, do you know?
Yes.
Which
Yes,
I
we do.
think is really good. So you've had that kind of educational background and everything, and now you actually went into the that I would call it, did the shadow work. Okay. Did your shadow work, because a lot of people don't go into the emotions. I come from a very emotional family. It was just this type of thing. And so it's like, and I always say, if I'm angry, you'll know. If I'm sad, you'll know. If I'm happy, you'll know.
Yes.
Okay. But a lot of times that can be a little bit much. But the key in Game Changer was emotional honesty is so important. To me, if you're not emotionally honest, you can actually hurt somebody.
Yes.
You're lying. I just want to bring that in at this time, because I think it's so relevant, and I'm so happy that you can share this with so much clarity.
Okay.
That's the important thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
And and the important, I think for me, one thing I wanted to get across more than anything was for people to understand that like you're saying, the honesty and the truth was so vital, because there was the things that happened, especially during holiday, but also after, and even before, a few years before, Peter and I started to recognize that our marriage was, you know, in the worldly sense, if anybody was to look at us, it was great. It was perfect, you know, nothing wrong, you know, whatever, we get along. We always had, you know, we always were on the same page about things. We never had to, you know, nitpick and discuss and fight. Like we really, but saying that, we also were disconnected emotionally.
Beautiful. Yes.
And he would agree with me. And you know, I'm not saying this to make myself, and it always takes two, but I came to recognize how emotionally disconnected I was. He was trying to get me to open up for all these years. And I just, for some reason, I guess it comes down to a choice. I chose not to because I was afraid. But I didn't know how to. And so typically in a marriage, it's usually the woman who always wants to talk about everything and hash it out. I'm telling you, in this marriage, it's opposite. He was so emotionally in tune with himself, with his body, with his thoughts, with his emotions, and I was not. So it was kind of a reversal, typically, right? So he would try to draw. Yeah.
Can I just ask you something? Sorry.
Sure.
I think that one of the most important things you just said was the connection and opening. And I believe that becoming vulnerable is maybe what you did. For me, it took me until I was in my 60s to become vulnerable. Okay. And we can throw that word around.
Yes.
But only when you experience it like you have and how I did, it was just like, it's almost like you're shattered.
Yes.
Shattered.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good way to describe it. And that's what it is. And it came down to, yes, our marriage, you know, there was nothing there's nothing that anybody would say or that we could say was awful or wrong. But we came to the point where Peter said to me, what do you want to do? Like, are we just going to continue on sort of, you know, being here, but being here, like separating, right? Not being connected, and just go and retire somewhere in some community and just do like everybody else does? Or do we want to have something real here? Do we want to change? We don't want to be like everybody everybody else. We want to have something, because otherwise what's the point? So as much as every so many things were so great, we came this close to not being together anymore. Like, it came very close. And him being truthful and honest and he gave me a chance to open up, right? To make that choice to be vulnerable and truthful, no matter how much it hurts. Because without the hurt and with no pain, there's no growth and there's no change. So,
Shelley, they do it in the head. And that's what I say. You can't do a book. You can't do a weekend retreat and say, I got it. You live it.
It's live it, and it's daily, and it's every moment, and it's a choice. Because I could have made the choice to stay in my fear and not face what was before me. And but I could not have done it without him loving, as much as we knew what love was at the time. We've come to a whole new understanding of what love is now, based on the experiences that we've had. So he loved me enough, as much as he knew what love was, to keep asking me, and to let's figure this out. And Peter cannot lie anyway. He just doesn't lie, and I know people go, oh no, but it's true. And that is who he is. He's truth. And that's all he's ever wanted his whole life since he's 4 years old. He's always wanted to know truth. So when I would not open up to him, and he would ask me, and I, years ago, and I just wouldn't, he stayed around, but I wouldn't have blamed him if he didn't, because I was not giving him an emotional connection that he needed. And we all need it, right? Not just him, we all need it. But I was distant, and I just didn't know. And I guess I was so afraid, because I'd never had anybody in my life ask me these things and get me to think about them, for a real purpose, right? So and when we talk about raw honesty and emotional talks, I mean, it was I don't even know if I can find the right words to describe it. I hope I'm describing it properly, because
perfectly, absolutely, brilliant.
Because without that, and without me having, and the other point is, I could have heard him, or have him ask me questions, and heard all the stuff that he needed to tell me, and I could have still chosen to not deal with it and not let it come up in me. I have learned that when the emotion comes here, if it stays here and you shove it and stifle it, like I've done my whole life, disease will come out of in your body.
Yes.
And I learned a lot about that with Dr. Northrup, that doctor I love to listen to, and just different things. There's different things that have come to, help me with my understanding. But the major thing was with the honesty, with the pain. So some of the stuff he told me, of course it was painful. And there were some things I didn't want to hear, but he wasn't doing it to hurt me. Like you said, the honesty, like without the pain, what's the point? So it's not all flowers and roses. It might get to that, but you have to feel it here, and it has to come up this way. It can't go down this way. Because that will, it will lead to disease. It will lead to a whole bunch of things, especially women at our age. There's this time that I think we might have anger, we might have resentment, we might have sadness, and we don't know why, because we're moms, we're wives, right? We put ourselves last,
right,
for the most part. This is a time, so this all coordinated for me for a time when I was also going through, perimenopause and menopause. And, I think, men might feel like, oh my, here she's talking about menopause, but you know what? This is a real time for women to explore themselves. And if they have husbands or partners who are sensitive to that, it can help the two people that are together to grow in a different way, because the husband or the partner will be able to express himself differently, because men also go through changes when they get to this age.
Yeah.
And who helps them? Men have to be tough, they have to be strong, they're not supposed to cry. Well, no, I don't believe that. Men go through lots of stress and struggles that maybe society doesn't focus on. Being breadwinners, or whatever, or being the head of the family. It's a lot of stress being a dad.
Right. Shelley, I want to say something
Yeah.
now. This is perfect.
Okay.
I'm sorry. But the bottom
Okay.
line is at the stage of your life you're going through is your Chiron return, which is healing the wounded child. Number one.
Okay.
You talk about men going through the same thing. Okay, I was a stylist and I can remember working at an upscale men's salon just as I was living back in Canada for a while. And so I was doing a lot of businessmen in Edmonton. Okay.
Okay.
It was really fantastic because it's like, okay, sit down, like, how are we going to do your hair? You know, stuff it's like, and so my question, because it's always about them, because they like to talk. We're there to shut
Right.
up and let them talk. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I would say 80% of the men were in their 50s and 60s. And you know what 80% of them told me? Which is what you're saying. I said, so how you doing? What's happening? And they go, well, we were really excited because we're at a stage in our life where we're wanting to retire.
Yes.
And so we had bought a place down south. That was a big thing for Edmonton.
Yeah.
South, wherever.
Yeah.
And they said, so we've been talking to our wives about it because we're excited. We're going to say, what are we going to do with the house? We're going to go there for 6 months. Do you know what 80% of the women said? Oh,
What?
you think I'm going to be with you by myself for 6 months? You're crazy. I'm staying here with my what? Grandchildren.
Children. Yeah.
Can you imagine what that did to
With that
man?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Devastated that soul.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No question. No question.
So for both people,
Um,
awesome.
yeah. Because, and you know, I think that at this time, whether you wanted to call it retirement or just whatever, maybe the husband and the wife are both winding down in their careers or whatever it is, or if it's a stay-at-home mom. I mean, at this time, 50, 60, whatever it is, oftentimes when women are done kind of with the mothering, you know, if their kids are grown up and they're kind of out of the house and she might feel like, oh, now my kids are gone. I've been home, you know, and loved it, I'm sure. You know, I think women who, you know, they have kids, they love it, but we don't take the time to know who we are at that time. And at the time when the kids are gone, it's like, wow, maybe now I could start doing, you know, a business that I want to do or whatever, some creative endeavor that they've never had the time to do. I think women at this stage, and it correlates with menopause and it correlates with all the changes that are happening with us inside hormonally and however you want to say. At the same time, women are feeling that the man wants to nest. He wants to get out of the rat race. He wants to be home.
Right.
And he wants to putter around maybe in the garden, or he wants to build something because that's his instinct now. He's going through something where he's like, I'm tired, right? I've done my thing. And I don't mean completely stop working, but just be home. So it's almost like the man wants to be home at the same time as the woman wants to break out and not necessarily leave the house to do something, but just do something different. And if they can't come together and be honest about that and sort of try to understand where they're coming from and why, a beautiful time could be made something awful, something, you know, that could break the marriage up, for instance, or it could just make them resent each other because the wife could be like, oh, now he's home all the time, you know, he's driving me crazy, he's puttering around, I don't want him here. But no, it should be a time when they can come together like married people, or you know, whatever, like a couple, like partners, whatever word you want to use, and enjoy each other and get to know each other because they've both been separated with doing their duties, right? Doing the mothering, doing the fathering, doing the work, doing all these things, all the stresses. And I think, you know, that to me was a huge discovery. And this is not coming from me. I've read about it, but it resonated with me. It made sense to me. And if marriages are not working, I mean, and you talk about this in your book, right? You're looking at new relationships, new models, how can we do this? Because the divorce rate is so high and we're messing up our kids. How can we do this different? Because it doesn't have to be the way society's always told us it needs to be. It's not, that's done. Like it's not working anymore. It's finished. Right. And I believe that a couple can come to some sort of, you know, maybe like in honesty, and maybe they'll realize, okay, great, we can work on this, we'll be together. Other people might go, you know what, we love each other as much as we know, but we realize we can't stay, and not out of animosity, just out of, okay, because when you're together with someone, you're still your own person. like, that's what Peter and I came to realize. Like, we've been together, we have a family, we have kids, we'll always be connected, right? We'll
Right.
always be connected. We're physical beings, you know, our souls, like we've been together for a long time. We have kids, we're always going to have that connection, but we are individual people in this marriage, in this relationship. And if we're not, if we don't know each other, if we don't know ourselves, how are we supposed to be together? Like, how we're going to expect each other to bring the happiness to each other, as opposed to, I'm content, I know who I am, and you know who you are. Now we can be together, but still recognize we have our own lives, our own needs, different things like that.
Okay, absolutely perfect. Basically, that was the whole premise of Game Changer.
Mm-hmm.
For the simple reason we've moved from the Piscean energy, which is more codependent.
Yes.
So there's a host and a parasite or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is what we're looking at, and it's going to be very prevalent December 20th when we have the big shift. It started in 2007, but it's been going a long time, is about being whole. So
right.
We're being whole with our left and right brain, okay, our head, our heart, and our hera, and our masculine and feminine. So what if two whole beings come together? There's two whole beings here. And the third one, if we look at three circles, you create the relationship. And what do you bring? That's exactly what you're talking about. And you have gone through it and gone through it to be able to, I'm not going to say save it, but to see the truth through transparency, through emotional honesty, and all of that kind of thing. And I think it's fabulous. And my thought would be, because this is something I do want to do, and I mean, this is our second time talking.
Yes.
I have wanted to do retreats. I would love to be able to do a retreat with you and Peter. If we could get something, we could maybe do a Zoom or something. But what I do want to say is, if you want to share a bit more, but I would also like to bring you back again, Shelley. This time, I would hope that we would have some people make some comments. Give us some questions that you would like Shelley to be able to answer you. So now we're engaging. Okay, it's really an engagement process. So we'll wait and see. And I think also here is that it's like, it's about uncoupling. So if you are going to, you know, sever the ties in your own way, you're uncoupling. But the bottom line is you're not pitting parent against parent and having the parent alienation.
Yes.
And in Alberta, we actually have a program now that if they do see, and I'm sorry, it tends to be the women because they've run off with another guy, they want them more kids, they say there's been blah, blah, blah. But now they can be charged with abuse.
Wow, really?
Because the judge has now decided that you cannot use your children as chattels. And they have figured out that you are affecting the cognitive ability of the child so that they're not going to be able to fulfill their potential.
Wow.
It has so many ramifications that we're talking about.
Yes.
So that people in blended families can maybe give you a thing. People that are thinking of getting into relationships, people that are going through challenges right now. How does that feel for you?
In terms of if
doing if they want to answer it, we could have another one, and then maybe you and Peter even want to start, because I know that you've been in the process of creating that, where you want to do some kind of work with people. And right now, Zoom is a really great place to be able to do it. And I'll tell you, with lockdown, we have had more divorces.
No question.
Arguing. There's everybody on booze cruises because they want to escape the reality. So escape the reality causes more damage than actually facing it. And you have to do it in the body, as you say. We're not going to run around in the full moon and make things different. You actually got to do the and burn the dross, they say. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So if you want to kind of like finish off whatever you want to say, and then
Okay.
and you can say to them what kind of questions you would like. But I was just thinking, because that's my creative thing.
Yeah, sure.
My
Great.
head is going, and it's like, wow, because with my background with astrology, your background, whatever, I've got self-discovery tools where we look at relationships, because my idea is we are energy beings. I believe in karma. We are right now cleaning up a lot of ancestral karma and personal karma. So we're going through and we're actually meeting people. This is
Yes.
so you can be in a relationship and you meet somebody and it's like, oh my God, I did have a past life with them, but am I going to jeopardize what's here now? And what's this all about? What's happening? And we're seeing it all over the place. I had done a video, maybe the 10th one from before, about what's happening with this karmically. And so again, where the emotional honesty and transparency is so important. And so I appreciate, so I'm going to be quiet now because my creative juices.
That's okay. No, that's good for me though. That's good for me to hear you sort of what your, you know, what your thoughts are and how this can, because my, you know, this is not for me and about me. This is this, and I'm so thankful for you giving me this time, because for me, what I've come to, and I say I've come to this, it's an everyday process still. You still have to make the choice every single day to listen to what's happening in here, and to still be, you know, it's not like you're honest for you know, for a couple of days and then it's all good. It's every single day, and every single day something still comes up, and I've settled with a lot of things that I had to deal with, but it's never over. So what I want, you know, and I'm going to say it's not just women, but kind of that's because I'm in this menopausal stage and I'm so kind of tuned into my own things that are going on. And I know there's women that feel alone and need to express themselves, or they don't know what's happening. You know, I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like, I don't know. And I just, my heart is just with women in particular, about, you know, so if there was any question that they might have, is where I think it might be helpful to hear it from me is, how did I actually, you know, do the work? Because it's easy to say do the work, right? But doing the work, first of all, number one, it's a daily decision. I had to make sure that I put myself first. And again, so all these things sound cliche, but it's true. You have to go in a room by yourself, or you have to say, okay, you know, kids or whatever, mom needs an hour. I need to go do this. Because if you don't sit with your emotions and because you can be aware of them, but you need to express them. And I tell you, Sandra, I cried buckets. I cried before we came on, you know, not for any particular reason. I wasn't sad, happy, whatever, but I've learned that if I have to cry, I'm going to cry. It's going to come out, and it's a release. And I never cried much. I kept everything inside my whole life.
Okay. I want to say something right now. First and foremost, you're giving them a lot. Okay. Which is incredible.
Okay.
Taking care of themselves. I'll say, secondly, I believe that tears heal the soul. And
yes, they do.
They're healing. And I've been doing a lot of crying for a year, and doing a lot of working on my body, doing a lot of my own shadow work and whatever. And I do it continually. But right now we are at such a pivotal moment in the world. And this is why this is so powerful. So listening, I want you to go, and what this moon is saying today, it's a moon in Aries. And what is my I am presence? And how can I honor who I am before I put anyone before? And then the Pluto that's coming up on October 4th, we could have never planned this. I didn't know you until a few months ago.
That's right.
How the universe works with me. I'm brought together with people, and it's not about us. It's what we can share of our own personal journey to help them understand that it isn't, I said, oh, I got a new book. Oh my God, I went and I'm awake. I've ascended. I am conscious. Okay. And as we go to Dr. Phil would say, well, how's that working for you?
Yes.
I appreciate it so much. And I'm so excited. I'm really excited to see how open, honest, and transparent anybody that watches this video can be. And you know what? If in fact you don't want to do the comment, okay, what I am going to do is, I don't know if you want to give me your email or your Facebook. They can check you on Facebook. And then, because I want to give options. I'm not,
Okay.
it's the way it has to be. I just want to know that I think that you and Peter have some exciting work to do when it
Yes.
comes to the area of couples, because of the experience you have, the wisdom you have, the credentialing you have. And hopefully, who knows, one day maybe we can do some kind of really cool retreat. And I would like to have you come back, especially once we get some information in. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Perfect.
so I want to thank everybody for being here. And Shelley, you're such a beautiful, wise soul, and I'm so honored to be able to have you here. I'm so happy that the universe has put us together, and I know you could share more, but I want them to sit with this.
Sure.
Sit with this, and I want them to, it's like digesting.
Yes.
People don't digest. We know that it's not taken to the 6th level in the brain of for understanding, to comprehend what's actually been. And I want them to sit, because we are all going through this right now. And so open, they've been given us all a very magical gift. It's almost like you could touch us on the head with a little wand. Okay. So it's to sit with it. Okay. And the alchemical process can take place. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. And I want to thank you for, like I said, this was not about me. And I'm so grateful, because anytime that I talk with anybody, or, and I process this, I want the people to understand whether they resonate with any of this or not, or whatever. Yeah, I'm sure they'll sit with it, but I want people to understand that any question or comment or whatever that they have, it's not like I'm an expert and I'm going to be able to fix anything. It's going to help me, because I need people to help me to maybe something I haven't thought about. And we learn from each other. Like, that's the thing I've learned. I was never one to, I guess I had a lot of pride. I always thought I could handle everything by myself. I never knew how to ask for help. And even now, and Peter says to me, like, I'm here, like, if you need something, because I'm not one who is very open to asking for help. So it's not a negative thing. It's not a sign of weakness. Recognizing we need other people is a sign of strength. And women, I think, are particularly, it's hard for them sometimes to ask questions or to admit that they need help. So yeah, it will help me a lot if people have questions or comments, because it'll get me thinking about some of the stuff maybe that I still need to do. So if it's something that's helping everybody, that's the point.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm about, is like, to me, everybody has a gift. Everybody can be an expert, and we're here to help each other through the process of becoming more aware, more mindful, with the ascension process.
Yeah.
Awakening, it's the great awakening. And right now it's a lot in the body. So a lot of people are in the body, and the body gives messages, just like Dr. Christine Northrup has always been one of my mentors.
Yes, I love her.
Barbara Brennan, Carolyn Myers, Louise, a lot of those people stay, because they say they want to take it to the head and do the intellectual until we move it in the body. And guess what? The body lets you know if you're not doing it right. Right, exactly. That's the signs and the messages. So anyway, that's it for me. Do you have any last words to say to everybody? No, I think it's just, I want people to know from my personal experience that life is exciting. Every day is exciting for me and for us, because once you come to some awareness and recognition and this, you can't go back. Like, I don't want to go back. I can't, even if I
thought I wanted to. And every day is exciting. It doesn't mean it's always easy, but that's not the point. The point is that once you get to this, start doing this process and the discovery and everything, I wake up excited. Every day, Peter wakes up excited, and we're whatever this brings us, we're following our intuition. That's another thing that I'd love to talk about at some point. I've learned my intuition is just more tuned up than it's ever been, and that is so important. That has brought me a long way in this. So that's just another point.
And I love that you said that, because at this stage of my life, okay, people say to me, why aren't you retired? Why aren't you here? You know,
what? Yeah.
73. What the heck do I want to retire from?
Exactly.
Life. To me,
yes.
There's a lot of people that are walking around that just aren't buried. They're like zombies.
Exactly.
And you have to find the life. Like, have life. It's like a flower. You're ready to bloom. And if you look at my website on my personal muse, the change is you're a caterpillar. Now, how are you going to be free and be the butterfly?
Yes.
Lightness and to live life. So thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Sandra.
I'm going to just